The ink from the Mont Blanc pen bled slightly where the teardrop fell, staining the signature that would end Chloe's marriage. It was Christmas Eve. The air smelled of roasted duck and pine, but the room was freezing cold. Her husband, Liam, wouldn't even look her in the eye. His mother, Patricia, was smiling a cruel, victorious smile that said she had finally won. They thought they were discarding a penniless, obedient housewife who brought nothing to the table. They thought they were trading up. But as Chloe capped the pen and pushed the divorce papers across the mahogany table, she wasn't just signing away a marriage. She was unlocking a secret she had kept for 3 years. The Harrington family was celebrating their freedom, completely unaware that the woman they'd just kicked out was the sole heiress to the largest private equity fortune in New York. And by the time they realized who her father really was, it would be too late to say sorry. Snow fell heavily over the manicured lawns of the Harrington estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. It was the kind of picture-perfect white Christmas that appeared on greeting cards. But inside the sprawling brick mansion, the atmosphere was suffocating. Chloe adjusted the sleeves of her modest beige dress, wincing slightly as the heat from the industrial oven blasted her face. She had been cooking since 4 in the morning. The catering staff had been dismissed by her mother-in-law Patricia 2 days ago. Patricia had claimed it was a budgetary necessity due to a slight dip in the family's stock portfolio, but Chloe knew the truth. Patricia simply enjoyed watching Chloe work. "Is the glaze on the duck finished yet? Or are you planning to serve us dry poultry for Christmas?" The voice cut through the kitchen like a serrated knife. Patricia Harrington stood in the doorway, swirling a glass of Chardonnay. She was dressed in a crimson velvet gown that cost more than most people's cars, her neck adorned with the Harrington family pearls. "It's almost ready, Patricia," Chloe said, keeping her voice steady. "I'm just letting it rest, so the juices redistribute." "You always have an excuse," Patricia scoffed, walking over to inspect the tray of crystal glasses. She ran a finger along the rim of a flute and examined it for dust. Finding none, she seemed disappointed. "Liam is in the study. Try not to embarrass him tonight. We have a very special guest coming, someone from the simplistic world you wouldn't understand. A woman of status." Chloe felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. "A guest Liam didn't mention anyone else coming." "Liam tells you what you need to know," Patricia snapped. "And frankly, considering you brought 0 dowry into this family and have no connections to speak of, you should be grateful he speaks to you at all. Now hurry up. Dinner is at 7 sharp." Patricia turned on her heel and left. Chloe gripped the edge of the granite counter, her knuckles turning white. 3 years. That was how long she had endured this. When she met Liam in a coffee shop in Boston, he had been charming, ambitious, and seemingly kind. He was the heir to a mid-sized logistics firm, Harrington Shipping, which was struggling to stay relevant in a digital world. Chloe had fallen in love with his drive. She hadn't mentioned her own background, that her last name, Sterling, wasn't just a common surname, but the sterling on the side of skyscrapers in Manhattan and London. She wanted to be loved for herself, not for the billions her father Harrison Sterling controlled. She had told Liam she was estranged from her family, a half-truth. She was estranged from their lifestyle, not them. But Liam took that to mean she was a nobody. And once the ring was on her finger, the mask slipped. He became his mother's son, weak elitist, and obsessed with appearances. Chloe took a deep breath and carried the heavy platter of duck into the dining room. The table was set with the finest bone china and heavy silver cutlery. The chandelier above sparkled, casting a cold light on the room. Liam was already seated at the head of the table, scrolling through his phone. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable. He was handsome in his bespoke tuxedo, but his eyes lacked the warmth they once held. "The duck looks fine," Liam muttered, barely glancing at her. "Did you press my suit for tomorrow?" "Yes, Liam. It's hanging in the dressing room," Chloe replied softly, taking her seat at the far end of the table opposite him. The distance between them felt like miles. "Good," he said. "Listen, Chloe. About tonight, things are going to be a bit different." Before Chloe could ask what he meant, the heavy oak front doors echoed with a rhythmic knocking. Patricia beamed a look of genuine excitement on her face that Chloe had never seen directed at her. "Ah, she's here. Liam, get the door. Don't keep her waiting in the cold." Liam jumped up, straightening his tie with a nervous energy that made Chloe's heart sink. He rushed to the foyer. Chloe heard the door open, followed by a high-pitched melodic laugh and the sound of confident heels clicking on the marble floor. "Liam, darling, it's freezing out there. I hope you have some of that vintage Cabernet you promised," a female voice purred. "For you, Jessica, anything." Liam's voice was dripping with adoration. Chloe froze. Jessica. The name had popped up on Liam's phone screen late at night for months. Jessica from marketing. Jessica. Work. Liam walked back into the dining room, but he wasn't alone. Hanging onto his arm, dressed in a shimmering silver dress that hugged every curve, was a woman with blonde hair cascading down her back and diamonds glittering at her throat. She looked at the room with an air of ownership. "Chloe," Liam said, his voice surprisingly firm. "This is Jessica Vance. She's joining us for Christmas." Jessica looked at Chloe, her blue eyes scanning Chloe's plain dress and messy bun with undisguised pity. "So this is the little wife," Jessica said, extending a hand, but not stepping closer. "Liam has told me so much about your domestic skills." Patricia clapped her hands together. "Jessica, please sit next to Liam. You're family now, after all." Chloe felt the blood drain from her face. Family. She looked at Liam, begging him silently to explain, but he wouldn't meet her gaze. He pulled out the chair to his right, the seat of honor usually reserved for the spouse, and Jessica sat down, smoothing her dress. "Welcome home, Jessica," Patricia said, raising her glass. Chloe sat alone at the end of the table, the untouched roast duck sitting between them like a corpse. She realized then that the dinner wasn't a celebration. It was an execution. The clinking of silverware against china was the only sound for the first 10 minutes. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Chloe took small bites of the food she had spent hours preparing, but it tasted like ash in her mouth. Jessica, conversely, was having a wonderful time. She ate with delicate, practiced motions, frequently leaning over to whisper things into Liam's ear that made him chuckle. "This duck is a little dry, isn't it?" Jessica said loudly, setting her fork down. She looked at Patricia with a conspiratorial smile. "My father, he's on the board at Goldman's, usually hires a private chef from Paris for the holidays. Once you've had Michelin star duck, everything else just feels a bit rustic." Patricia nodded sympathetically. "I apologize, Jessica. We've had to make do with what we have in the kitchen. Good help is so hard to find these days." They were talking about Chloe as if she were the hired help, as if she wasn't sitting 5 feet away. "It's fine, Mother," Liam said, reaching out to cover Jessica's hand with his own. "Jessica understands. She knows we've been dragged down a bit lately." Chloe set her fork down. The ceramic clatter echoed in the silent room. "Dragged down?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Is that what I am?" "Liam, await." Liam finally looked at her. His eyes were cold, devoid of the man she married. "Be realistic, Chloe. Look at Jessica. Her family owns Vance and Partners. She comes from a world of success. She understands the pressure I'm under to run the company. You're happy clipping coupons and living small. We're just incompatible. Incompatible, Chloe repeated. I supported you when the logistics union went on strike last year. I stayed up with you for 3 nights straight, helping you rewrite the proposal for the Asian merger. I have given you everything. You gave me administrative support, Liam sneered. Jessica gives me a future. Her father is willing to invest $50 million into Harrington Shipping. Do you know what that means? It means we don't go bankrupt. It means we survive. So that's it, Chloe said, a realization washing over her. You're selling your marriage for an investment. I'm securing my legacy. Liam slammed his hand on the table, rattling the wine glasses. Something you couldn't help me with. What is your father, Chloe, a mechanic, a farmer? You never talk about him because you're ashamed of your poverty, and frankly, I'm tired of carrying you. Patricia chimed in, swirling her wine. It's not just the money, dear. It's the pedigree. Jessica fits the image of a Harrington. You've always been a bit plain, a bit grey. Jessica smirked, taking a sip of wine. Don't be too hard on her, Liam. It's not her fault she aimed too high. Cinderella stories are only for fairy tales. In the real world, the prince marries the princess, not the maid. Chloe looked around the table. The opulence of the room, the velvet curtains, the gold leaf trim, the expensive wine, suddenly looked cheap to her. It was all a facade. These people weren't rich. They were desperate. They were drowning in debt and insecurity, clinging to status symbols to stay afloat. I see, Chloe said, her voice dropping to a whisper. A strange calm was settling over her. The hurt was there, searing and hot, but beneath it was something else. A steely resolve she had inherited from a man these people couldn't even dream of meeting. I'm glad you see, Patricia said, reaching under the table. She pulled out a thick manila envelope and slid it across the tablecloth. It stopped right in front of Chloe's plate, knocking over the salt shaker. What is this? Chloe asked, though she already knew. Consider it a Christmas gift, Patricia said with a cruel smile. It's a generous settlement. We're letting you keep the Corolla, and Liam is giving you $10,000 to help you get settled in. Wherever people like you live. A trailer park, perhaps? Liam wouldn't look at the envelope. He focused on his wine glass. Just sign them, Chloe. Don't make a scene. Jessica and I want to announce our engagement by New Year's, and we need this finalized. Engagement. Chloe looked at Jessica's hand. Sure enough, beneath the table, Jessica was fiddling with a ring. A ring Chloe recognized. It was the Harrington heirloom sapphire, the one Patricia had refused to let Liam give to Chloe because it was too valuable for everyday wear. Jessica pulled her hand up, flashing the massive blue stone. It's beautiful, isn't it? Liam proposed an hour ago. We didn't want to tell you until after dinner, but, well, the cat's out of the bag. The humiliation was total. They had invited his mistress to Christmas dinner, proposed to her, and were now serving divorce papers as the main course. Chloe stared at the papers. In tears she signs the Christmas dinner divorce, she thought. It sounded like a bad headline. But the tears threatening to spill weren't for Liam. They were for the 3 years she had wasted trying to please these vultures. She looked at Liam one last time. Are you sure about this, Liam? Once I sign this, there is no going back. You lose me. You lose everything I am. Liam laughed, a dry, humorless sound. That's the point, Chloe. I have nothing to lose with you. I'm gaining everything with Jessica. Just sign the damn papers. Chloe reached into her purse, which hung on the back of her chair. She didn't pull out a cheap biro. She pulled out a Mont Blanc Meisterstück, a pen worth more than the table they were eating on a gift from her father she had kept hidden. She uncapped it. The black resin gleamed in the chandelier light. "Okay," Chloe said softly. "Merry Christmas, Liam." The scratching of the pen nib against the paper was the only sound in the cavernous dining room. Chloe signed her name, Chloe Harrington, for the very last time. The letters were neat, precise, and final. She didn't cry. The tears that had threatened to fall earlier had crystallized into something harder, colder. She capped the Mont Blanc pen and placed it gently on the table next to the signed documents. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, she slid the diamond wedding band off her finger. It felt light, almost cheap compared to the weight of the moment. She placed the ring on top of the paper stack. "There," Chloe said, her voice devoid of emotion. "You have your freedom, Liam, and you have your investment." Liam reached out and snatched the papers, scanning the signature as if he expected her to have played a trick. "Good." He breathed a look of pathetic relief washing over his face. "You've done the right thing, Chloe. Truly." Jessica giggled, sipping her wine. "Don't look so grim, sweetie. You're $10,000 richer. That's a lot of money for someone in your position." Chloe stood up. She didn't look at Jessica. She didn't look at Patricia, who was busy inspecting the ring to ensure it hadn't been damaged. Chloe looked straight at Liam. "I won't be needing the ride to the train station," Chloe said, "and you can keep the $10,000. Consider it a severance package for the maid you're losing." "Don't be dramatic," Liam scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. "How are you going to leave walk?" "It's 5 degrees outside, and the nearest town is 6 miles away. Just take the money and call a cab." "I made a call while I was in the kitchen," Chloe said simply. "My ride is here." She turned and walked out of the dining room. Her footsteps on the marble floor didn't sound like a retreat. They sounded like a countdown. She didn't pack a bag. She didn't go upstairs to collect the few clothes she had bought with her meager allowance. She walked straight to the heavy oak front door, opened it, and stepped out into the biting winter night. The cold air hit her like a slap, waking her up from the 3-year nightmare she had been living. The snow was falling harder now, blanketing the long, winding driveway in pristine white. Inside the dining room, the atmosphere of celebration was interrupted by a low, vibrating hum. "Is that the heating system?" Patricia asked, frowning. "No," Jessica said, tilting her head. "That sounds like an engine. A big one." Liam frowned and stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the circular driveway. "Probably the Uber she called. I told her not to waste money on surge pricing." His voice trailed off. His eyes widened. Through the swirling snow lights cut through the darkness. But it wasn't the single pair of headlights from a beat-up taxi. It was a convoy. First, a massive black SUV, with tinted windows rolled silently to a stop in front of the steps. Then another. Then a third. And finally, gliding between them like a shark in dark water, was a sleek, long wheelbase Rolls-Royce Phantom jet, black with chrome accents that caught the porch lights. "What on earth?" Patricia muttered, joining Liam at the window. "Is that diplomatic plates?" Outside the scene, unfolded with military precision, 2 men in dark suits and earpieces exited the lead SUV. They didn't look like cab drivers. They looked like Secret Service agents. One of them scanned the perimeter, while the other jogged to the rear passenger door of the Rolls-Royce. He opened the door, and an older man stepped out. He was tall, with silver hair and a wool overcoat that looked like it cost more than the Harrington house itself. He held a cane not for support, but as an accessory of authority. "Who is that?" Jessica whispered, peering over Liam's shoulder. "That car. That's a customized Phantom. My father has been on the waiting list for 2 years. Liam watched paralyzed as Chloe walked down the snowy steps. She didn't shrink away from the imposing figures. She walked toward the older man. The man opened his arms. Chloe stepped into them, burying her face in his expensive coat. Even from the window, Liam could see the man's hand stroking her hair, a gesture of fierce protection. Then the man pulled back and looked up at the house. His gaze locked onto the window where Liam stood. Even through the double-paned glass and the distance, Liam felt the weight of that stare. It was a look of pure, unadulterated loathing. The driver of the Rolls-Royce had already opened the back door for Chloe. She slid inside, the orange glow of the luxury interior illuminating her face for a split second before the door closed with a solid, heavy thud. The older man got in beside her. The agents returned to the SUVs. In perfect synchronization, the convoy turned and swept down the driveway, the red taillights disappearing into the snowy night, leaving the Harrington family in stunned silence. "Liam," Patricia said, her voice trembling for the first time that night. "Who exactly was Chloe's father?" Liam stared at the empty driveway, a knot of dread forming in his stomach. "She said he was in manufacturing." "That wasn't a manufacturing car," Jessica said, her voice sharp. "And that man, I've seen him before, in the financial journals. I just can't place the face." Liam shook his head, trying to rationalize it. "Maybe she's dating someone. Maybe she found a rich boyfriend." "In the last hour," Patricia snapped. "Don't be an idiot, Liam. That man embraced her like a daughter." The unease in the room was palpable. The victory of the divorce papers suddenly felt hollow. The interior of the Rolls-Royce was a sanctuary of warm leather and silence, the chaotic noise of the last 3 years. Patricia's insults, Liam's indifference, the constant clatter of dishes faded instantly. Chloe leaned her head back against the headrest, closing her eyes. A hand, weathered but strong, covered hers. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered. Harrison Sterling, the billionaire patriarch of Sterling private equity, squeezed her hand. His voice was gravelly and deep, the voice that moved markets and toppled CEOs. "You have nothing to apologize for, Bug. You wanted to try to live a normal life. You wanted to find love on your own terms. I respected that, even when it killed me to watch you live with those amateurs." "You knew." Chloe opened her eyes. Harrison scoffed. "Chloe, I had a security detail parked 2 miles from that house every single day for 3 years. I knew what brand of detergent you bought. I knew every time that woman made you scrub the floors. It took every ounce of my self-control not to buy the bank that holds their mortgage and foreclose on them just to get you out of there." Chloe managed a weak smile. "I thought I could make him love me. I thought if I was just good enough, he would see me." "He is a fool," Harrison said, his tone hardening. "He was holding a diamond and treated it like glass. But that's over now. You're a Sterling Chloe, and Sterlings do not beg. We conquer." He pressed a button on the console, and a glass partition slid down. "James, take us to the airstrip. The jet is prepped for New York, correct?" "Yes, Mr. Sterling. Captain Miller is ready for immediate takeoff," the driver replied. "Good. And James, make the call." "The call, sir. Call the acquisitions team. Initiate Project Clean Slate." Chloe looked at her father. "What is Project Clean Slate?" Harrison looked out the window at the passing snow. Just some housekeeping, darling. I'm ensuring that the past doesn't follow you. 3 days later, the atmosphere at Harrington Shipping was jubilant. The news of Liam's engagement to Jessica Pierce, formerly Vance, before the rebranding consultant, suggested a change had been leaked to the press, along with rumors of a massive capital injection from Jessica's father, Robert Pierce. Liam sat in his office, his feet up on the desk, feeling like the king of the world. The divorce papers were filed. Chloe was gone, vanished into thin air. He hadn't heard a peep from her. No demands for alimony, no angry texts. It was as if she had never existed. Mr. Harrington. Liam looked up. His secretary, Mrs. Gable, stood in the doorway. She looked pale. "What is it, Gable? I'm busy planning the merger party." "There are some gentlemen here to see you, from the bank." "The bank?" Liam frowned. "I didn't schedule anything with First National." "It's not First National, sir. It's the new owners." Before Liam could ask what she meant, 3 men in grey suits walked into his office. They didn't wait to be invited. They carried briefcases and had the dead-eyed look of corporate auditors. "Liam Harrington," the lead man asked. "Yes, who are you? You can't just barge in here." "I am Arthur Doyle, representing the Sovereign Debt Management Group," the man said, placing a heavy file on Liam's desk. "As of 9 o'clock this morning, First National Bank sold a portfolio of distressed assets to our firm. Your company's loans were the primary asset in that bundle." Liam laughed nervously. "Distressed? We're not distressed. We're about to close a $50 million deal with Pierce Industries." Mr. Doyle didn't smile. "We are aware of the rumors. However, under the terms of your original loan agreement, specifically, Section 4, Clause B, any change in ownership of the debt allows the new creditor to call in the full amount immediately if the debt-to-equity ratio exceeds a certain threshold. Your ratio is currently abysmal." Liam dropped his feet from the desk. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, Mr. Harrington, that you owe us $42 million, payable within 48 hours, or we seize the company and all personal assets pledged as collateral." "Personal assets?" Liam's voice squeaked. "That includes the estate in Greenwich, the cars, the portfolio." "Everything," Doyle confirmed. "This is insane," Liam shouted, standing up. "You can't do this. I'll call Robert Pierce. He'll write a check right now." "Mr. Pierce?" Doyle raised an eyebrow. "I believe Mr. Pierce is currently occupied. The SEC launched an investigation into his firm this morning regarding insider trading irregularities. All his assets are frozen." Liam felt the room spin. "What? How? Who is doing this?" Doyle leaned in slightly. "Mr. Harrington, you're playing in a sandbox. The people who bought your debt, they own the beach. I suggest you find a lawyer. A very cheap one, because you won't be able to afford the expensive ones much longer." Meanwhile, in Manhattan, 50 floors up in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, Chloe Sterling stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling mirror. The beige rags and the messy bun were gone. She was wearing a tailored emerald green jumpsuit that made her eyes pop. Her hair was blown out in sleek chestnut waves. On her wrist sat a Patek Philippe watch, and around her neck was a diamond choker that had belonged to her grandmother. She looked powerful. She looked dangerous. She looked like a sterling. "You look ready," Harrison said, walking into the room. He handed her a tablet. "What's this?" Chloe asked. "The guest list for the New Year's Eve gala at the Met. Everyone who is anyone will be there. Senators, tech moguls, old money. Chloe swiped through the list. Her finger stopped. Liam Harrington and guest. He's invited, Chloe asked, surprised. He thinks he is. Harrison smiled a shark-like grin. I sent the invite 2 weeks ago before he knew who you were. He thinks it's his big break into high society. He thinks he's going there to network and save his dying company. And why are we letting him come? Because, Harrison said, placing a hand on her shoulder, public executions are so much more effective than private ones. He needs to see who you really are, Chloe. He needs to see that the woman he threw away for a few pennies is the woman who now holds his life in her hands. Chloe looked at the tablet, then at her reflection. The sad, broken girl from the kitchen was gone. Okay, she said, a fire lighting behind her eyes. Let's go to a party. The steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art were bathed in the strobe light chaos of 1,000 camera flashes. It was New York's most exclusive New Year's Eve gala, an event where the ticket price was merely a suggestion and the real currency was influence. Liam stepped out of his rented limousine, adjusting his tuxedo jacket. It was a little tight around the shoulders. He hadn't had time to get fitted properly amidst the financial firestorm engulfing his company. But he puffed out his chest, desperate to project confidence. Beside him, Jessica Pierce looked every bit the part of the wealthy socialite, though her smile was brittle. Keep walking and don't look desperate, Jessica hissed through her teeth as they ascended the red carpet. My father's lawyers said if we can secure a partnership with the Sterling Group tonight, the SEC investigation won't matter. We need credibility, Liam. Smile. Liam forced a grin, waving at photographers who weren't pointing their cameras at him. They were angling their lenses past him, waiting for someone more important. The sting of irrelevance burned his skin. Just 48 hours ago he had been threatened with total bankruptcy. This gala was his Hail Mary pass. He needed to find an investor, anyone, to pay off the $42 million he owed to the mysterious Sovereign Debt Management Group. Inside the Great Hall had been transformed into a winter palace. Ice sculptures the size of cars dripped slowly onto beds of white roses. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old money. Champagne, a waiter offered. Liam grabbed 2 glasses, downing one in a single gulp. Where is he? Where is Harrison Sterling? Keep your voice down, Jessica snapped, scanning the room. He's the host. He'll be at the head table table. Remember the plan? We approach him, we flatter him, and we pitch the merger as a logistical revolution. Don't mention the debt. They navigated through the crowd, bumping into senators and tech billionaires. Liam felt like an imposter. He saw people he recognized from the covers of Forbes, but when he tried to make eye contact, they looked right through him. It was as if a memo had gone out. Liam Harrington is radioactive. Look, Jessica whispered, gripping his arm. There. At the far end of the hall, on a raised platform, stood a group of people who seemed to generate their own gravity. In the center was the man Liam had seen in his driveway, the man who had taken Chloe. Harrison Sterling. He was laughing with the mayor of New York. That's him, Liam said, his throat dry. The man who took Chloe. Forget about the maid, Jessica said dismissively. Focus on the billionaire. Come on. They pushed their way toward the platform. As they got closer, the crowd seemed to part, not out of respect, but out of a strange, awkward curiosity. People stopped talking as Liam and Jessica passed, whispering behind their hands. Mr. Sterling, Liam called out, his voice cracking slightly. Harrison Sterling stopped mid-laugh. He turned slowly, his grey eyes locking onto Liam. The warmth vanished from his face, replaced by a terrifying, predatory calm. The music in the hall didn't stop, but to Liam the silence was deafening. "Mr. Harrington," Harrison said, his voice deep and resonant. "And Miss Pierce, I see you received the invitation." "It's an honor, sir," Liam said, extending a sweating hand. Harrison didn't take it. Liam awkwardly retracted it, wiping his palm on his pants. "We wanted to discuss a business opportunity, a synergy between our firms." Harrison smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Business? I thought you were here for the unveiling." "The unveiling?" Jessica asked, faltering. "Yes. I'm introducing the new CEO of Sterling Private Equity's philanthropic division tonight. She's been restructuring her life recently. I think you know her." Harrison stepped aside. From behind a curtain of white velvet, a woman stepped forward. The room gasped. She was wearing a gown of midnight blue silk, encrusted with diamonds that caught the light like stars. It was backless, daring, and regal. Her hair cascaded in glossy waves, and her posture was that of a queen surveying her subjects. Liam blinked. He knew that face. He knew the curve of that jaw, the shape of those eyes. But he couldn't reconcile the image. This wasn't the woman who wore oversized t-shirts and scrubbed his floors. This wasn't the woman who meekly accepted his mother's insults. "Chloe," he whispered. She looked down at him from the platform. Her expression was serene, almost bored. "Hello, Liam." "Jessica, I see you're drinking the 98 Dom Perignon. It's a bit full-bodied, isn't it? I always preferred the 04, but the catering staff insisted." "You," Jessica stammered, her face draining of color. What are you doing up there, standing next to my father?" Chloe said simply. The words hit Liam like a physical blow. Father. The man in the driveway. The manufacturing business. The Mont Blanc pen. The sudden buyout of his debt. The puzzle pieces slammed together in Liam's mind, forming a picture of his own colossal stupidity. "Your father is Harrison Sterling," Liam choked out. "You're Chloe Sterling." "I am now," Chloe said. "I dropped Harrington 3 days ago. It felt like dead weight." A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. Liam realized with horror that they weren't just guests. They were the entertainment. The elite of New York knew. Everyone knew. They were watching the ex-husband who had thrown away a billion-dollar heiress for a woman whose father was about to be indicted. "But you cooked," Liam stammered, his brain short-circuiting. "You cleaned. You drove a 2015 Corolla." "I wanted to see if you loved me," Chloe said, her voice projecting clearly over the hushed room. "Or if you just loved the idea of someone serving you. I got my answer, didn't I?" Harrison stepped forward, placing a hand on Chloe's arm. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention, I promised an announcement tonight." He gestured to a massive screen behind the platform. "Sterling Private Equity has always been about acquiring value," Harrison boomed. "But sometimes it's about disposing of garbage." The screen flickered to life. It displayed a corporate logo, Harrington Shipping. Liam's heart hammered against his ribs. "What is this? As of 4 p.m. today," Harrison announced, "Sovereign Debt Management, a wholly owned subsidiary of Sterling, has exercised its right to foreclose on Harrington Shipping due to insolvency." A collective gasp went through the room. "Foreclose!" Liam screamed, forgetting the crowd. "You can't do that. I have 48 hours. "Read the fine print, Liam," Chloe said softly from the stage. "The 48-hour grace period is void if the debtor is found to have engaged in gross mismanagement or reputational damage. Bringing a mistress to your wife's Christmas dinner. I'd call that reputational damage." No. Liam fell to his knees, not dramatically, but because his legs simply gave out. My company. My family's legacy. It's gone, Liam, Chloe said. We're liquidating the assets tomorrow. The warehouses will be sold, the fleet will be auctioned, and the house in Greenwich, the one your mother loves so much. She paused, letting the silence stretch. I'm turning it into a shelter for victims of domestic emotional abuse. I think it's fitting, don't you? The humiliation was absolute. Liam knelt on the plush carpet, the knees of his tuxedo pants absorbing the moisture from a melted ice cube. He looked up, searching for an ally, for anyone who would stop this nightmare. He looked at Jessica. Jessica was backing away. She wasn't looking at him with sympathy. She was looking at him with revulsion. She was calculating. Her father was in trouble, and attaching herself to a bankrupt, humiliated man was social suicide. Jessica. Liam reached out a hand. Help me. Call your father. We can fix this. Jessica slapped his hand away. The sound echoed in the quiet hall. Don't touch me, she hissed. You lied to me. I lied. Liam looked at her bewildered. You were there. You were part of it. You told me she was a nobody. Jessica shouted, her voice shrill and panicked. She turned toward the stage, looking up at Chloe with wide, pleading eyes. Chloe, listen to me. I didn't know. He told me you were crazy. He told me you were dragging him down. I was manipulated. I'm a victim here, too. Chloe looked down at Jessica. A slow, cold smile spread across her lips. It wasn't a smile of forgiveness. It was the smile of a judge passing a sentence. A victim, Chloe repeated. Jessica, you sat at my table, ate my food, and laughed while your boyfriend served me divorce papers. You aren't a victim. You're just a bad investment. Chloe gestured to the security guards standing at the edges of the room. Please remove Ms. Pierce. I believe she's trespassing. This is a private party for people with assets. Two large men moved in on Jessica. She shrieked, Do you know who my father is? A man who is currently being arraigned in federal court, Harrison Sterling interjected calmly. I suggest you go home, Ms. Pierce. The FBI is probably looking for you to answer some questions about your spending accounts. Jessica's face crumpled. She didn't look at Liam again. She turned and ran her heels, clicking frantically on the floor, the security guards trailing her like shadows. Liam was alone. He stood up slowly. The shock was fading, replaced by a surge of desperate anger. He had lost everything. His company, his fiancée, his home, his reputation. And it was all because of the woman standing on the stage in the blue dress. You planned this, Liam snarled, stepping toward the platform. You played me for 3 years. You lied about who you were. I never lied, Chloe said, her voice steady. I told you I came from a hard-working family. I told you I valued loyalty. You just never bothered to ask the details because you were too busy listening to your mother complain about the dust on the mantelpiece. You vindictive butch, Liam spat. You think money makes you better than me. You're still just the woman who begged for my attention. Harrison stepped forward, his cane tapping ominously on the stage. Careful, boy. You're speaking to the chairwoman of your liquidation committee. I don't care, Liam shouted, his face red. You can take the company. You can take the house, but you can't erase the truth. I was the one who left you, Chloe. I walked away. You didn't leave me. I discarded you. The crowd murmured. It was a pathetic attempt to regain control, but it was all Liam had left. Chloe walked down the stairs of the platform. The crowd parted instantly, giving her a wide berth. She walked until she was inches from Liam. She was wearing heels, making her taller than him. She looked down into his bloodshot eyes. "You didn't discard me, Liam," she said softly, so only he and the people in the front row could hear. "You set me free, and honestly, it's the only thing you ever gave me that was worth a damn." She reached into her clutch purse. Liam flinched, expecting a weapon. Instead, she pulled out a small velvet box. "Oh, and I almost forgot," she said. "Your mother called the office today. She was screaming about her pearls. Apparently she can't find the family necklace." Liam stared at the box. "You stole them." "No," Chloe said. "I bought the pawn shop ticket." She tossed the box at his chest. He fumbled to catch it. "She pawned them 6 months ago, to pay for her gambling debts." Chloe revealed, her voice dripping with pity. "I bought them back because I didn't want the family history, as pathetic as it is, to be lost. Keep them, sell them, eat them. I don't care. Consider it my final act of charity." She turned her back on him. "Get him out of here, Dad. He's ruining the aesthetic." Harrison nodded to the security team. "Escort Mr. Harrington to the exit, and make sure he takes the subway. His limo service has been cancelled." 4 guards surrounded Liam. He looked around the room, searching for one sympathetic face. He saw only amusement and disdain. The people he had idolized, the world he had desperately wanted to join, were laughing at him. As the guards grabbed his arms and dragged him toward the exit, Liam looked back one last time. Chloe was back on the platform, clinking glasses with the mayor. She was radiant. She was untouchable. And she wasn't looking at him. He was dragged out into the cold New York night. The paparazzi were still there. As he stumbled down the steps, stripped of his dignity and his future, the flashes went off like explosions. Click, click, click. "Mr. Harrington. Mr. Harrington. How does it feel to lose $1 billion? Is it true you're homeless? Look this way. Liam, give us a smile." Liam covered his face with his hands, but he couldn't block out the light. 11 months had passed since the gala at the Metropolitan Museum. The seasons had turned, the leaves had fallen, and once again the biting cold of December settled over Connecticut. For most, the holidays were a time of warmth and reunion. For Liam Harrington, it was a reminder of how far he had fallen. The heater in his 2008 sedan rattled violently as he idled at a red light. The car smelled of stale pizza and wet cardboard. He adjusted his cap, pulling it lower over his eyes. He wasn't wearing a bespoke suit anymore. He was wearing the neon orange vest of a gig economy delivery driver. "Recalculating route," the GPS chirped. Liam sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. He had been driving for 10 hours straight. He needed the money. The rent on his basement studio apartment in Bridgeport was overdue, and his mother's care facility, a grim state-subsidized nursing home that smelled of bleach and despair, was demanding payment for her medication. Patricia had not taken the fall well. After the house was seized and the assets liquidated, she had suffered a minor stroke. It hadn't killed her, but it had stripped her of her mobility, and more painfully her pride. She spent her days in a wheelchair, staring at a small television, telling anyone who would listen that she used to be a Harrington, that this was all a mistake, a clerical error that would be rectified any day now. But nobody listened. To the nurses, she was just another bitter old woman in room 3B. "Turn right in 200 feet, the GPS instructed. Liam turned the wheel. As the car crunched over the snow-packed road, a knot formed in his stomach. He knew this road. He knew the curve of the oak trees, the stone walls lining the property boundaries. He hadn't looked at the destination name when he accepted the delivery order on his phone. He had just seen the payout, $25 for a large catering delivery. He had grabbed it instantly. Now, as the iron gates loomed out of the darkness, He realized where he was. It was his old house. But it didn't look the same. The rusted Harrington Manor sign was gone. In its place was a sleek, modern plaque illuminated by soft LED lights, the Sterling Sanctuary. Liam's heart hammered against his ribs. He wanted to turn around. He wanted to throw the car into reverse and flee. But he couldn't. If he cancelled the order now, he'd be penalized. He might lose his job. And he couldn't afford to lose this job. He drove up the long, winding driveway. The landscaping was impeccable, better than it had ever been when he lived there. The bushes were trimmed, the snow was ploughed, and the house itself glowed with a warmth that had been missing during his entire marriage. He parked the beat-up sedan next to a fleet of pristine vans marked Sterling Foundation. He got out, grabbing the heavy thermal bags filled with food from a high-end local bakery. He walked up the steps, the same steps where the black SUVs had idled that fateful night. He rang the doorbell. The door opened almost immediately. A woman stood there, holding a clipboard. She wasn't a servant. She looked like an administrator dressed in smart business casual. "You're late," she said briskly, checking her watch. "The gala starts in 20 minutes. Bring them to the kitchen. Side entrance." "Sorry," Liam mumbled, keeping his head down. "Traffic." He trudged around to the side of the house, entering the kitchen. The kitchen stopped him in his tracks. It was the same room where he had watched Chloe cook for 3 years. The same granite counters, the same industrial oven. But the energy was completely different. It wasn't a place of servitude anymore. It was alive with laughter. A dozen women were in the kitchen. Some were chopping vegetables. Others were decorating cookies. They were chatting, smiling, helping one another. They looked safe. They looked happy. "Just put the bags on the island, thanks," the administrator called out from the hallway. Liam set the bags down. His hands were shaking. He turned to leave, desperate to escape the ghosts of his past. "Excuse me." A voice stopped him. A voice that sounded like a memory. Liam froze. He turned around slowly. Standing by the oven, wearing a simple but elegant cashmere sweater and jeans, was Chloe. She looked healthier than he had ever seen her. Her skin glowed. Her eyes were bright, and she carried an air of effortless confidence. She was holding a tray of gingerbread men. She looked at him. For a moment, there was no recognition. He was just a delivery driver in a neon vest, unshaven with dark circles under his eyes. A nobody. Then her eyes narrowed slightly. She tilted her head. "Liam." The sound of his name on her lips was like a physical blow. The chatter in the kitchen died down as the other women sensed the shift in the atmosphere. "Chloe," Liam rasped. He wanted to say something dignified. He wanted to say he was doing fine, that he was just helping out a friend. But the lie died in his throat. He looked at his worn-out boots, his dirty fingernails. "I have a delivery." Chloe set the tray down. She didn't look angry. She didn't look vindictive. She looked pitying, and that was worse. "I see," she said softly. "I didn't know," Liam stammered. "I didn't know it was here. It's okay, Liam," she interrupted. She walked over to the counter and opened her purse. The same designer purse she had carried out of the house a year ago. She pulled out a $20 bill. "Here," she said, holding it out. "For the tip." Liam stared at the money. It was charity. Pure, unadulterated charity from the woman he had treated like a slave. "I can't take that," he whispered. "Take it." Chloe said, her voice firm but not unkind. "It's Christmas, and you look like you need it." He reached out and took the bill. His fingers brushed hers. Her skin was warm. His was freezing. "You've done good work here," Liam said, looking around the kitchen, his eyes stinging. "It's warm." "It is." Chloe smiled, looking at the women around her. "We help women who are starting over, women who were told they were nothing. We give them a voice." She looked back at him. "Everyone deserves a chance to rewrite their story, Liam. Even you. But you have to write it yourself this time." "Chloe!" A deep voice boomed from the doorway. Harrison Sterling walked in, carrying a toddler in his arms, a little girl with curly hair. "Grandpa!" the little girl squealed. Liam watched, confused. "Grandpa!" Chloe smiled, taking the child from her father. "My niece," she explained. "My brother's daughter. He flew in from London for the opening." Harrison looked at Liam. He didn't offer a handshake. He didn't offer a threat. He simply looked at the orange vest, then at Liam's face, and gave a short, dismissive nod. It was the acknowledgement one gives to a passing stranger. Liam Harrington was no longer an enemy to be destroyed. He was simply irrelevant. "Come on, Chloe," Harrison said. "The donors are arriving. The press wants a photo of the chairwoman." "Coming, Dad," Chloe said. She looked at Liam one last time. "Drive safe, Liam. The roads are icy." And then she turned away. She walked out of the kitchen, surrounded by her family, her purpose, and her success. She didn't look back. Liam stood alone in the kitchen for a moment. He looked at the $20 bill in his hand. He walked out the side door into the cold night. The snow was falling harder now. He got into his rusting sedan and turned the key. The engine sputtered and coughed before finally turning over. As he drove down the driveway, leaving the warmth of the Sterling sanctuary behind, he looked in the rearview mirror. Through the large bay windows, he could see the party beginning. He saw the chandeliers sparkling. He saw Chloe laughing, holding a glass of champagne, surrounded by people who adored her. He reached the end of the driveway and turned right back into the darkness, back toward his empty basement apartment. The tears finally came, then. Hot, scalding tears that blurred his vision. But there was no Mont Blanc pen to sign them away. There was no billionaire father coming to save him. There was just the road, the cold, and the long, silent drive home. And that is the story of how a Christmas dinner changed everything. Liam and his family thought they held all the cards. They thought value was determined by bank accounts and last names. They mistook silence for weakness and kindness for servitude. But as they learned in the most brutal way possible, the quietest person in the room is often the one you should fear the most. Chloe didn't just sign divorce papers that night. She signed a Declaration of Independence. She proved that true class isn't about what you wear or who you know. It's about how you treat people when you think they have nothing to offer you. Liam spent years looking for a diamond, never realizing he was already holding one until he threw it away and watched it shatter his entire world. What would you have done if you were Chloe? Would you have helped Liam at the end, or would you have let him suffer? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of drama, betrayal, and instant karma, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. We post new dramas every week. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.